I accidentally found out I'm not my parents' biological child. I never thought my life would turn into one of those crazy Reddit stories, but here we are. I'm 22, in college, working part-time and living a pretty normal life. I have a great family. My mom, my dad, and my little sister Lena, who's 17. We've always been close, or at least I thought we were. Last weekend, I was at my parents' house helping my mom clean out the attic. She's been on a decluttering spree lately, trying to get rid of old junk we don't need. We were going through boxes of old clothes, school projects, and random stuff from when I was a kid. It was kind of nostalgic until I found that box. It was an old dusty shoebox tucked away in the corner behind a pile of my dad's old sports trophies. I wasn't looking for anything in particular, just mindlessly rummaging through stuff when I opened it. Inside were some old papers, medical records, baby photos, and my birth certificate. At first, I didn't think much of it. I picked up the birth certificate, kind of smiling to myself, remembering how my mom always joked about how chubby I was as a baby. But then, something weird caught my eye. The name in the mother section wasn't my mom's. It was a different name entirely, a name I'd never heard before. I stared at it for a few seconds, my brain not fully processing what I was seeing. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe this was someone else's document. But no, there it was. My full name, my date of birth. Everything else was right, except for my mother's name. And under father, a name I didn't recognize either. I felt this weird cold sensation in my chest, like the air had been knocked out of me. My hands started shaking. I dug deeper into the box, my heartbeat pounding in my ears. There were old hospital documents, some legal-looking papers I couldn't understand, and even an old letter addressed to my parents. My real parents. That's when my mom walked in. She saw me holding the papers and immediately froze. Her face went pale. I looked up at her, feeling like the ground beneath me was crumbling. "Mom, what is this?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. She didn't answer. She just stared at me, her eyes wide, her hands gripping the edge of a box like she needed to hold on to something. And in that moment I knew, whatever this was, it was something she never wanted me to find out. I never thought my life would turn into something straight out of a movie, but here I am, questioning everything I've ever known. I grew up in a normal family. At least I thought it was normal. My parents were loving, my little sister Lena was annoying, but in a sibling way, and there was never any real drama. That was until last weekend when I went up to the attic to help my mom clean and found an old shoebox filled with documents that shattered my entire reality. Inside was my birth certificate, but the names under mother and father weren't my parents. At first, I thought it was a mistake, maybe some clerical error, but my mom's reaction told me everything I needed to know. She looked at me like a deer caught in headlights. When I asked her what the papers meant, she didn't deny it. She didn't even try to explain. She just whispered, "You weren't supposed to find that." And just like that, my world split in two. That night, I barely slept. My mind kept replaying the moment over and over, analyzing every little thing my parents had ever said or done. Had there been signs? Were there hints I had missed? I thought back to how people sometimes said I didn't look much like my dad, but I always laughed it off. I remembered how my mom avoided answering questions about my birth whenever I asked as a kid. It all made sense now. The next morning, I woke up with a pit in my stomach. I needed answers, real ones. I waited until my dad left for work and Lena went to school before confronting my mom in the kitchen. She was washing dishes, pretending like nothing had happened, but I wasn't going to let her brush this under the rug. "Mom," I said, my voice sharper than I intended, "I need you to tell me the truth." She flinched slightly, placing a plate in the drying rack with careful precision. "About what?" she asked, though we both knew exactly what I meant. I took a deep breath. "About who I really am." She sighed and turned to face me, drying her hands with a towel. "I was going to tell you," she said quietly. "I just didn't know when." "When? When I turned 30? 40?" My voice cracked. "Or were you planning on never telling me?" Tears welled up in her eyes, and for the first time I saw real guilt written all over her face. "We were scared," she admitted. We didn't want you to feel like you didn't belong. We love you, and we thought, she swallowed hard. We thought it was better this way. I wanted to scream. Better for who? Who are my real parents? I asked, gripping the edge of the table. She hesitated. My heart pounded. She knows. Of course she knows. There's no way she's kept this a secret for 22 years without knowing who they were. She looked away. Your mother, she was young, too young. She wasn't in a place to raise a baby. She gave you up, and we adopted you when you were only a few weeks old. Something inside me twisted. I didn't know if it was relief or anger. So she's alive? I asked. Yes. The room spun slightly. I had spent my whole life assuming my family was complete, that I had all the pieces of my identity in place. But now there was a whole other life, one I had never known existed, waiting just beyond the walls of this house. Why didn't you tell me? My voice was barely above a whisper. Because we didn't want to lose you, she said, tears slipping down her face. We were afraid that if you knew, you'd go looking for her and, she trailed off, and maybe you wouldn't want us anymore. I felt my chest tighten. As angry as I was, I could see it now, the fear in her eyes, the pain in her voice. She wasn't just hiding the truth. She was trying to protect herself. But what about me? What about my right to know? I took a step back. I need time to think. She nodded, wiping her eyes, but didn't say anything as I grabbed my keys and left the house. As I drove aimlessly through town, my mind raced with possibilities. I had a mother out there, someone who had given birth to me and let me go, someone who might still be thinking about me. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't sure where I truly belonged. I never thought my life would turn upside down in a matter of hours. One moment, I was just helping my mom clean the attic, and the next, I was questioning everything I had ever known. I had always believed I belonged, that my parents were my parents, my sister was my sister, and our family, though imperfect, was real. But after finding that box, after discovering that my birth certificate listed two complete strangers as my biological parents, I wasn't sure of anything anymore. The worst part? My mom knew. She had known all along, and instead of telling me, she had chosen silence. And now, I had a choice of my own. I spent the next few days in a haze, barely speaking to anyone. My mom tried to reach out, leaving food at my door, sending texts asking if I was okay, but I ignored them. My dad, on the other hand, was strangely absent. He hadn't even tried to talk to me, which only made me angrier. Did he not care? Was he just letting my mom deal with the mess? Lena was the only one who acted like nothing had changed. She still blasted music in her room, still stole my hoodies, still yelled at me to get out of the bathroom faster. And for a second, I envied her. She still had a solid identity. She still knew where she came from. Me? I felt like a puzzle with missing pieces. It didn't take long for the curiosity to eat away at me. I needed answers. I waited until late at night, when the house was quiet, and went back to the attic. My hands trembled as I rifled through the box again, scanning the documents for anything I had missed the first time. Then I found it, an old letter. It was addressed to my adoptive parents, written in delicate, almost shaky handwriting. My fingers tightened around the edges as I read. Dear Mr. and Mrs. Ivanov, I don't know if this is the right decision, but it's the only one I can make. Please take care of him. Love him the way I wish I could. Tell him, tell him I did this because I had to, not because I didn't love him. Maybe one day when he's older, he'll understand. It wasn't signed, no name, no return address. Just a few sentences from a woman who had given me away. My heart pounded as a thought hit me. I had nothing to go on. How the hell was I supposed to find her? That's when I saw it. A small note scribbled at the bottom of one of the documents. Biological mother, Ekaterina Mikhailova. I froze. I had a name. My breath came out in shaky bursts as I pulled out my phone and opened Facebook. It was a long shot. There had to be thousands of women with that name, but I didn't care. I had to start somewhere. I typed it in. Hundreds of profiles popped up. I scrolled mindlessly, my vision blurring with exhaustion and nerves. None of them seemed right. Too young, too old, Different cities, different lives. I was about to give up when I saw her. A woman in her late 40s, kind eyes, a face that, if I looked close enough, had features that felt eerily familiar. My mouth went dry. Her profile was private, but there was one public post. It was just a simple photo of a sunset over the ocean. The caption read, "Thinking of you today. I hope you're happy wherever you are." I don't know why, but my chest tightened. Was she talking about me? I hesitated for a long time, my finger hovering over the message button. What if she didn't want to hear from me? What if she had moved on? What if reaching out would ruin whatever life she had built after giving me up? But what if she did want to hear from me? What if she had been waiting all these years hoping I would find her? I took a deep breath, and I typed, "Hi. I don't know if this will make sense, but I think you might be my mother." Then before I could overthink it, I hit send. And just like that, there was no turning back. The second I hit send, I regretted it. My heart pounded so hard I could hear it in my ears. My phone felt heavy in my hands, and for a moment, I considered deleting the message. Maybe she wouldn't see it. Maybe she wouldn't respond. Maybe this was a mistake. But the little sent notification just sat there mocking me. There was no taking it back. I stared at my screen for what felt like forever, waiting for those three little dots to appear. They never did. Minutes passed. Then an hour. Nothing. I should have gone to bed, but my mind wouldn't shut off. I lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, wondering if I had just completely screwed up my life. What if she had a new family? What if she had never told anyone about me? What if she saw my message and felt nothing? At some point, exhaustion took over, and I drifted into a restless sleep. The next morning, I woke up to a single notification, a message from her. I bolted upright so fast I almost dropped my phone. My fingers trembled as I opened it. Her reply was short, careful. "Who are you?" My stomach twisted. She didn't even deny it. She didn't say, "You have the wrong person." Just, "Who are you?" I took a deep breath and typed back, "My name is Alex. I was born on May 14th, 2001. I found my adoption papers yesterday. Your name was listed as my biological mother." I hit send and waited. This time, the three little dots appeared almost immediately. My heart pounded as I watched them blink on and off, over and over again, until finally a message popped up. "I need a moment." Then a few minutes later, "I never thought this day would come." I didn't even realize I had been holding my breath until I felt my chest burn. I wanted to ask 1,000 questions at once. Why did you give me up? Did you ever think about me? Do I have other family? Do I look like you? But I didn't know where to start. Before I could respond, another message came through. "Are you okay?" That one caught me off guard. Out of everything she could have said, she asked if I was okay. I swallowed the lump in my throat and replied, "I don't know." Her response was almost instant. "I understand." And then after a long pause, "Can we talk?" I stared at the message for a long time. A part of me wanted to say yes immediately, to call her, to finally hear her voice, to ask her all the questions that had been suffocating me since I found those papers. But another part of me was terrified. Talking to her meant making this real. It meant stepping into a life I had never known, a life that had been hidden from me for 22 years. What if I wasn't ready? I sat there, my fingers hovering over the keyboard, until finally I typed two words. "Okay, when?" The reply came almost instantly. "Whenever you're ready." I wasn't ready, but I had to do it anyway. I had no idea what to expect when I finally called her. My hands shook as I pressed the call button, my heart hammering in my chest. The phone rang once, twice, then a soft voice answered. "Hello." For a second, I couldn't speak. She sounded normal, just a person. Not some mystery, not some ghost from my past, just a woman. "Hi," I finally said. "It's Alex." There was silence, then a shaky breath. "I can't believe this is real." Neither could I. That first conversation lasted almost an hour. She told me about herself. Her name was Ekaterina, but she mostly went by Katya. She lived a few cities away. She had never married but had a son, my half-brother, who was 16. She didn't cry, but I could hear the emotion in her voice when she said, "I never wanted to give you up." I didn't know how to respond to that. She told me she had been young, alone, and in a bad situation. That she had made a choice she thought was best for me. That not a single day had passed where she didn't think about me. I listened, trying to process it all, but part of me was still numb. When the call ended, she asked if we could talk again. I said yes, because despite everything, I wanted to. I was still mad at my adoptive parents for keeping the truth from me, but at the same time, they were still my parents. The people who raised me, who were there for every scraped knee, every school play, every bad day. And Katya, she was still a stranger in many ways. But the more we talked, the more I saw pieces of myself in her. The way we both fidgeted when nervous. How we both loved old rock music. How she laughed at her own bad jokes. One day she sent me a picture of my half-brother Daniil. "I told him about you," she wrote. "He wants to meet you." I stared at the photo for a long time. I had a brother, a whole other family, and for the first time, that thought didn't terrify me. Eventually, I sat down with my adoptive parents. We talked, we cried, and for the first time since this all started, I let myself really hear them. They had been afraid. Afraid I'd leave, afraid I'd feel like they weren't enough. But I told them the truth. I was angry, but I still loved them. That wasn't going to change, and it didn't. I met Katya and Daniil a month later. It was awkward at first, but then Daniil started teasing me about my terrible Russian, and suddenly it felt like I had known him forever. I didn't leave my family for them, and I didn't push them away to keep my family comfortable.